Hello, everyone. It's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. I've been seeing this news article in social media feeds and showing up in my news suggestions for the past week or so. And this is an article from Brighter Side of News, and it's dated January 14th, 2024. And it says groundbreaking solar panels are 1,000 times more powerful than traditional panels, which sounds amazing. But I just want to talk about this because it's kind of interesting from Aptera standpoint, and also it's one of my pet peeves how the popular press or the media that's targeted towards non-scientists is so bad at reporting scientific news. So if you read this title, it sounds like they've made this amazing technological leap that makes solar panels 1,000 times better, which that's not at all what this study shows. So if you look at this, they say researchers at Martin Luther University have discovered a new method to increase the efficiency of solar panels by a factor of 1,000%, which would be basically impossible because solar panels right now, commercial solar panels are like in efficiency range of the low 20s. And so if it was 1,000 times better than that, you would get more energy out of the panel than energy coming in. So that just doesn't work from a physics standpoint. You just can't, like the best you could do is you could increase its efficiency by like 3%, by a factor of 3 or 4, and that would make it like 80% efficient. 80 some percent efficient if you increase it by a factor of 4. So on this, initially, you know that this can't be right. And then if you click on this, recently published in the Journal of Scientific Advances, if you click on that, Scientific Advances recently published is actually June 2nd of 2021. So I wouldn't say that's recent. And then they go in, they kind of talk about how it works. And that part is generally correct. But the current flow is up to 1,000 times stronger. Now, this is actually in the text of the article, they have it kind of correct. They said compared to a pure barium titanate of similar thickness, the current flow is up to 1,000 times stronger. So what it was is in this paper, they looked at barium titanate, so barium, titanium, and oxygen. And as a thin layer, it is a terrible solar panel. And so, yeah, if you start off with something really bad, you can make it 1,000 times better. And what they did is they sandwiched it between other perovskites. And this is actually a perovskite. So you guys have probably heard of perovskite solar panels, solar cells. And barium titanate is a perovskite, and calcium titanate is a perovskite, and silicon titanate. So basically, they are saying at the end, they make it seem like, okay, I'm going to scroll all the way to the end. Sorry. Yeah, they said have generated interest, and they're going to commercialize the new technology and could help. That they feel like they're going to have these solar panels in a few years. So it says, if successful, this could lead to development of commercial solar panels based on a new material within the next few years. Now that was in 2021, and it's 2024 now. So I looked at are there barium titanate superlattice solar panels? If you look through here, there's nothing about it. Yeah, there's no commercially available thing talking about it. And then here I looked under superlattice solar panels. Again, nothing about it. There's something about a quantum well superlattice. That's a totally different thing, and also highly theoretical and not ready for commercialization. Then I looked at barium titanate solar cells. Nothing. You get the same. You get the same articles that we looked at before. So that does not seem like it's the case. Now, perovskite solar panels are a thing, and they are coming to market. So I thought we'd revisit some perovskite information that I did a video on a couple of years ago. And then we'll have a little update about where the state of perovskite solar panels are right now. That probably Aptera is using the SunPower Maxion solar cells, which are 22.7% efficient, which is really good for commercial cells. It's a pretty good commercial cell. There aren't very many commercial cells that have higher efficiency than this. So that's what they've picked. Are the Maxion cells. So let's go over these perovskites videos, and we'll talk about some of the things that are not misleading on purpose, but you kind of get the feeling that that it's going to be the end all. So here's one from Undecided with Matt Farrell, which I think is a great channel. I enjoy his videos.
Reports of about 3% in 2006 to over 29% today.
Okay, so that makes it seem like, in less than a decade or so, it's gone from 3% to 29%. So, oh my goodness, in another decade, it's going to be like 60%. That's just not, that's probably not possible. And that has to do with Shockley quasar limit. This is the paper by William Shockley and Hans Quasar. Basically, so if you guys don't know, William Shockley and a couple other people were the inventors of the transistor at Bell Labs back in the 60s. And basically, in this paper, he talks about the maximum efficiency that you would expect from a solar panel based on its band gap. And they calculated 30% for a silicon, because silicon has a band gap of 1.1 eV. Now, what does that really mean? Let me go over that. So I think this is the kind of the best video on YouTube on this. And unfortunately, it has 52 views. But it's by Professor David Kahan from the Weizmann Institute in Israel. And it's an hour-long video, so it's a little bit dense. But if you have any interest in it, I would recommend watching the whole video. But basically, what it means is the way solar panels work is that the material has what's called a band gap, which is the amount of energy that it takes for the electron in the material to jump up to a higher electron level so that it becomes conductive. So basically, in a semiconductor, the electron is in its valence shell, which is it's stable. It won't move away from its atom. But when it gets excited, it can be excited up to the conduction shell, and then it can move around and become electricity. So let's say that this is your band gap right here. And so any photon, so these photons, across here is more photon energy. Any photon that does not reach the band gap will not be absorbed by the cell because it just doesn't have enough energy to push the electron out into the conduction shell. And then any photon that has more energy than the band gap, basically it will excite it, but any energy beyond the band gap, it just gets wasted as heat because it can't pick it up. So then you're like, if you fix the band gap here, then you'll get a lot more energy per photon, but there's so few photons that have that level of energy that you won't absorb like most of the thing. If you set your band gap here, then you'll absorb every photon will have enough energy to send you to the conduction shell, but each photon will have so little energy that you'll get almost no energy out of it. So basically, wherever you move this, the power out becomes like a box, and the area of the box is going to be relatively stable because no matter where you go in here, the box stays kind of the same size. It'll be more square here, more rectangular here, but you can't make it so that it's across the whole thing. Now there is a way to make it to do that, to absorb at all the different band gaps, and that has to do with, if you look at this graph, look at the thing that is the most efficient. It's right here. It's this thing with the square in the box, which is a 4-junction or more concentrator. So they're basically putting a lens on it to concentrate the solar, and you get this. Or if you want an unconcentrated one, I think, let's see, it's a square box here. It's 40% here. And how do they get this? It's called a multi-junction shell, and here's how it works. What they're doing is they're stacking different materials on this solar panel, and they have different band gaps. So 2.1, 1.7, 1.4, 1.2, 0.9, 0.69. Okay, so basically, like this one will absorb a lot of electrons, but each electron will have very little, excuse me, a lot of photons, but each photon will have very little energy, so it won't get very much. So you wouldn't want this. And this one would, each photon will give you a lot of energy, but very few photons have that much energy. So if we go back to here, it's like that first layer would capture these, and then the second layer would capture these. The second layer and the third layer would capture these, and the fourth and the fifth. So basically, you can imagine that there's multiple boxes in here. And if you add up all the boxes, then you get a lot more efficiency. And then even within the box, you know, obviously you're going to lose. There's some others beyond the thermalization and not absorption. There's other processes that make it less efficient. So you'll never have 100% efficiency. Obviously, 50% is thought to be really, really good. And so in this multi-junction cell, the light will come in, the high energy photons will be absorbed by this layer and converted to electricity. Then the next layer will be converted to this. The next highest energy photons will be captured by this, and then this, and then this, and it just goes through. And so there's 6 layers. So we're like, well, why don't we do this? Well, the reason is look at the materials that are in here. It's like gallium indium phosphate, gallium arsenide. These are like expensive materials, hard to work with, and then you got to stack them in 6 layers. It's really, really hard. And I think this this cell is like less than a square centimeter in size. So you can't scale this commercially, and even if you did, it would be extremely, extremely expensive. So like not viable commercially. So that's why this multi-junction technology is interesting in the lab. And you can get very efficient cells this way, but it's not commercially viable because it's so expensive. So unless there's some big technological advances in making these materials cheaper or using a different material that's easier to get, and then also in manufacturing these multiple layer multi-junction cells, this is not going to be commercially viable, and that's why we don't talk about these in commercial applications. Now, what makes perovskite interesting is that it's cheap and it's easy to manufacture. So here's another one from 2-Bit Da Vinci. Here's what he says.
Further market proliferation. Enter perovskites. Perovskite is a calcium titanium oxide mineral and one of the most common crystal structures on the planet.
Okay, so he's like not exactly right. Here's this is from MIT. This is a PhD candidate talking about pushing the efficiency limit of lead halide perovskite solar cells. So actually, the perovskite solar cells right now are not calcium titanium oxide. They are an organic lead halide perovskite. So he kind of discusses it here.
Now, if we zoom in with the microscope, we'll see that it has the following crystal structure. And the type of perovskite that we're interested in for various optoelectronic properties devices is a lead halide perovskite.
Okay, so this calcium titanium oxide is the most common perovskite in the mantle of the Earth. But a perovskite is any crystal that has this structure, A, B, X to X3. So this A can be anything, and this B can be anything, and X can be anything. Well, actually, it has to be 2 cations and an anion. So in this case, what they have is an organic compound, and then lead, and then a halide. So halides are like bromide, iodide, that kind of stuff. And these things are the ones that are used in the perovskite solar cells. So this is just the structure. The structure is this. It's like a diamond with a central core of lead, and then this is the organic portion. And the organic portions can be anything.
Where the A side cation, such as methylammonium or formamidinium, is surrounded by an octahedral cage composed of lead and halide. And with all that.
Yeah, so these browns are the halides and the leads in the middle, and then this is the organic compound. So that's one of the major problems of perovskite is that it has lead in it, and that's a big problem. And then this is the other thing that's like kind of funny. If you listen to this video.
it has a band gap of 1.5, but
we'll go
still
back.
not ideal. Perovskite then, it has a band gap of 1.5 electron volts, making it even better than ideal.
Okay, so you can't have it better than ideal. 1.4 is the ideal band gap. Okay, yeah. So if you look here, this is the Shockley-Quasar limit. You see that the ideal band gap is like 1.4. It's right here. 1.5, that's when the efficiency starts dropping off. So it's not like 2.5 is way better than 1.4, which is the ideal band gap. And 1.5 is not better than 1.4. Okay, 1.4 right here is just a band gap. It's in this area. 1.5, you're starting to drop off. So that's not correct. And lastly, in this video, he talks about this thing where they are getting rid of lead, because lead is a big problem in perovskite. And he talks about how there's a 27% efficiency with this tin-based perovskite. But if you look at the actual article, it says performance optimization of lead-free perovskite-based solar cell with 27% efficiency by numerical simulation. So this is a simulation. If you look at actual, so this is the highest efficiency perovskite right now is about 29% with a tandem silicon and lead perovskite cell. But for tin halide cells, their current maximum is 13%. They haven't. There's nothing even close to 25%. See right here, the open circuit improved up to 24.4% efficiency. So that is the best efficiency of a tin perovskite cell. So we're far away from matching lead perovskite or solar cells, silicon cells. So I think what we need to understand is that this is a physics limit, and you're not going to get efficiencies beyond 30%, much beyond 30%, without stacking and having multiple band gaps within the thing. Now, one of the improvements is that you can have a tunable band gap. So you can tune the perovskite to different band gaps. And so you could simulate this multiple layer thing maybe in a single phase. Now, I'm not enough of an engineer or physicist to know if that's possible, but maybe it's possible that if you mix the different band gaps into a liquid phase and make a perovskite solar cell with multiple band gaps within it, maybe it will capture more solar energy. I don't know. That would be very interesting to know. But if you watch those videos, the downsides of the perovskite is that there's a couple. There are toxic solvents that are used in the manufacture and has lead in it. And the other big problem is very unstable. They don't last very long. Silicon cells last like 25, 35 years. These things last like hours to maybe a few months currently. So until they fix those problems, these things aren't going to be the answer to our problems. Okay, so what is the state of perovskite solar panels? There are several companies that are generating what are called like hybrid or bilayer perovskite solar panels. What they're doing is they're getting perovskite as the first layer and standard silicon as the second layer, and they're basically using perovskite to do the higher energy band gap photons in the visible range, and they're going to use silicon for the lower energy near the red and infrared region of the spectrum, and then they can capture more of the solar panels. And they've achieved efficiency of into the low 30s, which is significantly better than current solar cells. And their major problem obviously is trying to overcome the encapsulation problems and the longevity of the perovskite layer. But there are a couple of companies. Q-Cells is a well-known company. They're established. They make standard solar panels. They're kind of moving into this perovskite region. First Solar is another established company that makes standard silicon panels, and they're also moving into there. Then Tandem PV is a startup. So there are a couple of startups that are working on these tandem perovskite silicon solar panels. So that's one. Swift Solar is another. So they're looking at high performance, our perovskite tandem technology. Kalux is another one. This one's based out of Pasadena. They're also working at perovskite tandem technology. And Beyond Silicon is another thing where you have a perovskite layer on top and a silicon layer on bottom. So this is another tandem technology. And probably this is Oxford PV is the one that is saying that they are going to come to market this year in 2024 with commercial tandem perovskite silicon solar panels. So they have a high bar because silicon solar panels are pretty efficient now. You know, they're in the low 20s, just like the Maxeon cells that Aptera uses, and they're relatively cheap. And so if you make something like 50% better or 20% better, but it costs 100% more, people are probably not going to go for that. So it has to be like better for the same price, or the same price for cheaper, something like that. The economics have to work out. It just can't be better. It has to be better and cost efficient. And so we should wait and see how Oxford PV goes out. These other companies are probably a couple of years behind them, but we don't know what their technology is. But they're not using this barium titanate super lattice technology. Now that may be coming down the pipeline too, but it's not anytime soon. It's not anytime soon. And I believe these people are looking at making a pure perovskite solar panel or solar cell. And so, yeah, this is a very, very misleading title where they try to make it seem like it's 1,000 times better than traditional panels. That is absolutely false. It's not 1,000 times better than traditional panels. It's 1,000 times better than a pure barium titanate monolayer, which is horrible. And if you look at, we'll go to the actual paper. Here's the actual paper from Science Advances. If you look at this, and you'll see this is their energy consumption. So this is the single layer barium titanate. This is the triple layer. And you can see the barium titanate is essentially 0. And then this is like 35. So it's way better because this is like 0. It's like probably like 0.3 or something like that. And so yes, it's like 30 something. So it's 1,000 times better than 0.3, but you started off at basically nothing. So if you start off at basically nothing, you can get 1,000 times better, but it's not 1,000 times better than like the Maxeon cells or the cells that people have on their roofs, whatever cells they may be. It's definitely not 1,000 times better than that. Okay, well, hopefully that was useful for you guys. We are going to keep track of this perovskite technology because it is something that is very promising and people are definitely moving into it. Some major players like Q Cells and First Solar, and some promising startups. And the first one, the startup that's in the lead, looks like it's going to be Oxford PV. So we'll have to see if they can actually scale production and make it economically feasible. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.